A father faced an impossible choice in the hospital: his wife or his unborn child. Only one could survive. He made his decision. But what happened next defied everything doctors thought they knew about life and death. This is their story. Before you watch, remember to like and subscribe so you don't miss another touching story like this one. And write in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. It all started months earlier, when life was still filled with hope. Nathan had spent months eagerly waiting for his baby brother's arrival. The idea of finally having someone to play with, someone he could share his toys and secrets with, filled him with excitement. Each day, he would speak to his mother's growing belly, imagining all the fun times they would have together. He had already picked out names for their toy dinosaurs and thought about every game they would enjoy. One day, as he helped his mom Rachel get the baby's room ready, he glanced up at her and asked, "Mom, will he love dinosaurs like I do?" Rachel gave him a warm smile while folding a small baby outfit. "I'm certain he'll enjoy anything you share with him, sweetheart. You'll be a wonderful big brother." Nathan's face glowed with happiness. To him, life was completely perfect. His father, David, stayed busy with work much of the time, but he never forgot to kiss Rachel's belly and talk softly to the baby each night. Nathan would gently press his ear to her stomach, patiently hoping to feel some movement. Each time he felt a kick, he would shout with excitement, "He kicked me! He's eager to meet us." Their house overflowed with joy and anticipation. But then one day, everything changed for the worse. The day began like any typical morning. David had gone to work early, giving Rachel a gentle kiss and asking Nathan to look after his mom. Several hours later, Nathan was in his room playing with his dinosaur toys when he heard a loud crash from the kitchen. He immediately stopped what he was doing. Something felt wrong. "Mom, are you all right?" he shouted nervously. No one answered. He ran to the kitchen and found Rachel lying still on the floor, her skin pale and her eyes shut. Panic rushed through him, but he made himself stay calm and recall what his parents had taught him. With trembling hands, he grabbed her phone, dialed for emergency services, and did his best to describe what was happening. "Please hurry. My mom's pregnant and she collapsed. Something's seriously wrong." When the ambulance got there, Nathan wouldn't leave Rachel's side. "I have to come with her," he said firmly. "I promise to keep them both safe." The paramedics agreed and allowed him to ride along. He gripped her hand firmly throughout the entire journey to the hospital. Once at the hospital, doctors rushed Rachel straight into the operating room. Nathan attempted to go with them, but someone held him back. "Please, let me stay with her," he pleaded desperately. "I promised I'd be by her side." However, the large doors shut before him, leaving him standing alone in the corridor. Soon after, David arrived at the hospital, looking frightened and breathless. He discovered Nathan weeping in the waiting room. "Dad, they brought her to surgery," Nathan cried. "They're not letting me see her. What if something terrible happens to her?" David hugged his son tightly. "Your mother is really strong, Nathan, and so are you. I promise everything will be okay." Yet neither of them knew what was coming next. Dr. Bennett emerged to talk with them, and her expression was extremely serious. She gently explained that Rachel had suffered something known as placental abruption, a sudden and highly dangerous problem during pregnancy. Rachel was bleeding heavily. The doctors had to act very quickly, and given the baby's position, the delivery would be extremely dangerous. Then she spoke words that completely destroyed their world. "I'm truly sorry, but we cannot save them both," Dr. Bennett said quietly. "There just isn't enough time. You must make a decision." David felt as if the floor had vanished under him. "What do you mean? Make a decision? I don't get it." You need to choose right now, the doctor said softly. We can save your wife or we can save the baby, but not both. David struggled to breathe. How could anyone ever choose between the person they love most in the world and their own baby? He stared at the operating room doors, his heart shattering. And that's when he made the impossible choice. The operation succeeded and Rachel lived. However, when everything was finished, her belly was now flat and empty. A few hours afterward, Rachel woke up, still drowsy and disoriented from the anesthesia. David sat right next to her bed. When she gradually understood what had taken place, she looked away as tears rolled down her face. I know what you chose, she said softly. I get it. You made the only decision possible. All of a sudden, Nathan burst into the room. Mom, you're awake. She hugged him tightly. But then he asked them the question they had feared. Where's my baby brother? Can I see him now? I've waited so long. No one spoke a word. Rachel breathed deeply, trying to steady her voice. Sweetheart, your little brother is gone. He's in heaven now. Nathan froze completely, unable to understand what he'd just been told. No, that can't be true. I promised him I would keep him safe. I must see him right away. I have to. The doctors hesitated about whether this was wise, but they finally decided to bring the baby to the family. Grace, Rachel's sister, firmly opposed this decision. He's just a child, she protested. Don't let him see his brother like this. He won't ever forget it. Yet Rachel knew something crucial. Nathan had to say his goodbyes properly. Even more importantly, he had to keep the promise he'd made. The baby was gently wrapped in soft white blankets and carried into the room. The silence was deafening. Rachel cradled her lifeless baby in her arms and wept quietly. David stood beside her, unable to say anything, absolutely heartbroken. The room became filled with unbearable quiet. Then Nathan slowly approached, his small footsteps echoing in the stillness. May I hold him, please? He asked softly, his voice barely a whisper. Rachel gazed at him for what felt like an eternity, tears streaming down her face, then gave a slight nod. The nurses carefully lifted the small bundle. As they placed the baby in Nathan's little arms, everyone held their breath. Nathan held his baby brother gently, staring at his pale, lifeless face. The baby's skin was ice cold. His tiny lips were blue. His chest remained completely still. Not a single breath, not a single movement. Nathan's hands started shaking violently as the devastating truth crashed over him. He's so cold, Nathan whispered, his voice cracking with unbearable pain. Tears began streaming down his cheeks, falling one by one onto the white blanket. He drew the baby closer to his chest, desperately trying to share his warmth, pressing his wet cheek against the blanket. I'm here with you now, he said, his voice breaking into sobs. I'm so sorry I wasn't there when you needed me. I'm so sorry I couldn't protect you. I promised I would keep you safe. The quiet in the room was suffocating. Time seemed to stop. Everyone stood frozen, watching this heartbreaking moment, their own hearts shattering. Grace covered her mouth, trying to hold back her sobs. The nurses wiped tears from their eyes. Please don't leave me, Nathan begged, his voice desperate and raw. Please, little brother. I've waited my whole life for you. We were supposed to grow up together. We were supposed to play with the dinosaurs. I picked out names for them. I have so much to show you. Please don't go. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. I love you so much. Please. He squeezed his eyes shut, pulling his brother as close as humanly possible, as if he could transfer his own life into that tiny, cold body. "You can come back," he whispered with fierce determination. "I know you can hear me. Please, come back to me. I'm right here. I won't let you go. I won't." 5 seconds passed. The only sound was Nathan's quiet sobbing. 10 seconds. Nothing changed. 15 seconds. The baby remained perfectly still. 20 seconds. David stepped forward, his face crumbling, ready to gently take his son away from this unbearable pain. But then something happened. Something impossible. A movement so subtle that at first no one was certain they'd seen it. A barely perceptible flutter beneath the blanket. So faint it could have been imagination. Nathan's eyes flew open, wide with desperate hope. "Wait," he breathed, frozen in place, afraid to move, staring intensely at his brother's face. Everyone in the room leaned forward, hardly daring to breathe. Then it came again. A faint tremor. A soft, weak sound, almost like the whisper of wind. So quiet they had to strain to hear it. Rachel gasped, her hand shooting to her mouth. The sound repeated, slightly stronger this time, a tiny, fragile gasp for air. Then, as everyone watched in absolute disbelief, the baby's chest moved. Just barely, almost imperceptibly. But it moved, it rose, and fell, and rose again. And then, breaking through the deadly silence like a thunderclap, the baby cried. A weak, small cry at first, then stronger, then louder. Rachel let out a scream of pure shock and joy, her whole body shaking. David stumbled backward, his legs nearly giving out, his face frozen in complete disbelief. His hands were shaking uncontrollably. The nurses stood paralyzed, mouths open, unable to process what they were witnessing. Grace collapsed into a chair, her hand still covering her mouth, tears flooding her face. Dr. Bennett burst through the door at the sound of the commotion and stopped dead in her tracks. Her eyes went wide. Her face turned white. That's impossible," she stammered, rushing forward with trembling hands. He had no pulse, no heartbeat, no brain activity. He was gone for over 20 minutes. She grabbed her stethoscope with shaking fingers and pressed it against the baby's chest. Her eyes grew even wider. "His heart is beating," she whispered in shock. She checked again, unable to believe her own findings. "His lungs are working. His vitals they're stabilizing." She looked up at her colleagues, her voice barely audible. "This is medically impossible. This cannot be happening, but it is." Nathan looked up at his mother, his face streaked with tears, but now smiling through them, a smile of pure joy and triumph. "I told you I would save him," he said softly. "I made him a promise, and I kept it." They named him Noah. From that day forward, Nathan and Noah became inseparable. Two brothers bound by one unbreakable promise. One life brought back not by science or medicine, but by the power of pure love. Did you enjoy this story? Do you believe that love can truly work miracles? Yes or no? Let us know in the comments below. If you like the story, subscribe to this channel and leave a like. Thanks so much for listening. See you in the next video. Have a great day.